In today's lesson, I will be answering your question, how do I find evidence in a text to support my claim? So today's lesson's objective, this is what you should be able to do at the end of the lesson, is I will be able to read a text, figure out an idea about it, and then find evidence from the text to support my idea. Two important vocabulary words that we are going to use a lot this year are claim and evidence. The idea that you're making about a text is also called a claim. Another word for this would be a thesis or an argument. So claim is both a verb and a noun. As a verb, it means to state as true. So if you say, I claim that the text is beautiful, then you are using claim as a verb and you are stating something that you believe to be true. If you use claim as a noun, it is an argument or an idea. Either way, in writing or in speech, in class, in a discussion, for example, when you state a claim, you have to find evidence in the text to prove it. Evidence is something that gives proof of or a reason to believe something. That's what I'm going to teach you today, how to state a claim and find evidence to prove it. Step 1. When you're trying to state a claim, you need to have a guiding question so that you know what to look for. Today the guiding question is, what is an example of individuality in Shel Silverstein's poem, Weird Bird? Anytime you are asked to make a claim about a text and you don't know what you're supposed to be looking for, respectfully ask your teacher, what is the guiding question, so that you know exactly what you're supposed to be looking for in the text. Once you have your guiding question, read through the text. Remember to have a good idea of what the guiding question is before you start reading. So we're going to remember that you are trying to find examples of individuality in this poem. The poem is called Weird Bird by Shel Silverstein. Birds are flying south for winter. Here's the weird bird heading north. Wings are flapping, beak a chatterin', cold head bobbing back and forth. He says, it's not that I like ice or freezing winds and snowy ground. It's just sometimes it's kind of nice to be the only bird in town. A common mistake when trying to find evidence to prove a claim, what we call evidence in English is quotes. You need to quote the text. The text is where you're going to find the evidence. And when you put the text in your own writing, you have to put quotation marks around it to let your teacher know that those are the text's words, the author's words, and not your own. A common mistake is that you go into a text looking for words that are in quotation marks. Well, your evidence can be anything written in the text. You are quoting the author, but are not limited to text that is already in quotation marks. Once you know your guiding question, you can set the question up as a claim. So here's an example. An example of individuality in Shel Silverstein's poem, Weird Bird, is. Now you're going through the text trying to find examples of individuality. The examples of individuality that I found are, here's the weird bird heading north. That shows that he is the unique bird that is going north instead of south. And then down here, the bird speaks. He says, it's not that I like ice. And then this is not necessary right here. It is not necessary to include this. It's just kind of extra fluff, and you want to keep your quotes as concise and precise as possible. So I'm going to take that out, okay? And then I'm going to finish the quote here by saying, it's just sometimes it's kind of nice to be the only bird in town. These 4 lines are examples of individuality. Now, if you notice, I took out text here in between this line and these 2 lines, and I also left out these 2 lines. The way you show your reader that you've kind of skipped some words is by an ellipses, dot, dot, dot. So I'm going to leave a dot right there to show that I skipped these words, 3 dots, and I'm going to do 3 dots here to show my reader that I skipped this line. Also, in poetry and song lyrics, at the end of a line, to show your reader that there was an end of a line, you do the slash. So you'll see that in my quote. But I found my evidence here to support my claim that these are examples of individuality. So here is what my quote is going to sound like. Again, when you're quoting your author, you are going to introduce the quote by saying Silverstein writes, and then you write the quote. You put a comma, quotation mark, and then you capitalize the first line if the author capitalized, the first letter if it was capitalized in the text. And here's the quote. Here's the weird bird heading north. He says, it's not that I like ice, it's just sometimes it's kind of nice to be the only bird in town. This right here shows the end of the quote as it was quoted in the text, and then the end of your quote. We'll get to that later on in the year when we study MLA citations more carefully. And then here's your in-text parenthetical citation. And then what we're not going to cover is now it would be your job to explain in your own words how this evidence proves your point. But this covers our objective of being able to read a text, figure out an idea about it, and then find evidence from the text to support my idea. This is not an easy thing to do, and I highly recommend rewatching this video a couple of times to be able to master this skill. Good luck and do your best.